walked down that hallway in that side door, and I could feel the trailer kind of going like this. So I told my wife at the time to get dressed. I didn't know what was going on, to get dressed. And as I opened up that door of the trailer house, and you know, I this is what I saw. Okay, I saw I saw out there 20 and 30 feet away from us, waves that were taller than our trailer house. And then we got up, we went down. There was 3 trailer houses. The other 2 had already washed away and they were gone. Ours had turned at a 90, parallel with the creek. Between our trailer house and the shore, my dad had a house. That house, and there's people on shore that was yelling, get out, swim for your lives. That house picked up, it turned, and it was washed away. So I didn't really necessarily want to jump in that raging river and swim the shore, but my wife did, and I jumped in. She was 7 months pregnant, so I grabbed her underneath her belly with my left arm, and the water was about up to my chest, and I took one step out in that raging river, and it literally just sucked me down. And as I would suck down, I would get down on my haunches, and I would jump upstream, and then it would suck us down, and I'd go down, and I'd jump upstream until we got to shore, or close to shore. We were about 10 to 12 feet from shore when the water was up to my waist. I realized I was taking a step, and there was nothing there. And then I realized there was this oak tree, and that was an old root cellar that was there. So 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet from shore, I literally, with my left arm, I threw her, and she lit on shore. The current then took me down where there was this house in one of those trailer houses that washed away before, down by March Watson's house, and a whole bunch of debris there. And I was pinned against that debris, and the water was up to my neck. And I was trying to struggle and get out of there, and it was happening. I was getting drugged down. The water came right up to my chin, and I said, Buzz, you need to stop. So I stopped. I focused, and inch by quarter inch, I just brought myself up out of that water. During the time there was still doing construction. I was working for utility engineers over in Custer, South Dakota. We were putting in a whole bunch of water lines and some different things for the township of Custer. And I was digging with my backhoe, and I had a guy watching the electric, we knew there was electric cable down. He was supposed to be watching one. I was just digging a little dirt at the time. Yeah, go ahead. Well, something told me, and so instead of bringing the bucket in, I let it go back out. And as I let it go back out, the biggest, loudest bang happened. I basically just all the power for the town of Custer, I had broken their main supply. The ground, the dirt in the ground got so hot it was bubbling. It would have been one of those instances where I literally would have been fried on that backhoe. Of course, because of my drinking and drugging, I wound up getting a divorce. From the day that I walked out of that courtroom getting a divorce for a year and 9 months, I never ever drove, or I never had a sober breath. I never drew a sober breath. During that time, work became a problem. So I did the only natural thing I knew how to do, and that was to quit work, devoted full time to drinking and using. But to support my habit, I became a full-time thief and drug dealer. I knew I was getting in way too deep when these 2 guys came to me and they offered me any drug, any time, and any amount, and they would front it to me. In other words, I didn't have to pay for it until I sold the drug. Eventually, I realized that the drug dealing was way too dangerous, that there was a possibility that I could wind up in jail. So I kind of quit doing that, but I devoted full time to still drinking and smoking pot. I was still dealing pot on a regular basis, and mostly always the pot that I dealt was to this high school. I knew people that would come to me to buy my pot and then sell it to other kids at this high school. I never ever had less than a kilo of pot in my pickup truck. I always had a toolbox on the back, and kilo is about a little over 2 pounds. I never ever had less than 2 pounds. The thing was is I always had a gun rack in my pickup, and I always had my gun in my pickup also. And at those days of my life, I wore a cowboy hat every day. And so basically nobody ever questioned me. I also, during this time, a couple of different things that happened to me and one in particular is I was late at night, 60 miles an hour, headlights coming at me. I swerved, and our mirrors hit. We broke our mirrors, so it was that close to head-on collision. Another time, as I was going from Hill City back to Keystone, as I passed out and I was leaning forward, for some reason I slammed on the brakes, and I was parked sideways, blocking both lanes of traffic, and I passed out. Don't know how long I was there. All I know is somebody came and tapped me on the shoulder, woke me up. I did think maybe at that point in time that I had a drinking problem. So I decided, well, I'm going to prove it, and I won't drink on my birthday. Well, that didn't really work out very well. One of the reasons why I thought I might have a problem with the drinking was because this is towards the end of my drinking, and one night as I went to the bar kind of late, I got 9 different fights that night. I believe that I was so suicidal. I used to go into the bars and get drunk, find the biggest, toughest looking guy in there, and then go pick on him. That's got to be suicidal. I wanted someone, anyone, to end this hell that I was living in. On February 21st, 1977, just 36 years ago, February 21st, I decided that I had to do something, so I went next door to tell my dad that I thought I was an alcoholic. And he said, well, I'll call the AA club and I'll take you down there. Well, I called them up, and nobody answered the phone. It was George Washington's birthday, so I figured the AA club took the holiday off, which they're open 365 days a year. But anyway, they didn't no answer, so I said, well, Dad, I tried and nobody was there. So I run back. I was in the shower. I was getting cleaned up because I was going to go out and party again. And Dad came over to my house, and he says, well, I called the AA club, and they're there, and they'll talk to us if we come down. So he drove me down there. And in fact, my dad drove me for the next 2 weeks every day to the AA club, which I'm so thankful for. I went to the AA club because I had a drinking problem, but I wasn't going to stop smoking pot. But I went through treatment. I went through treatment after I'd only been there a couple of weeks. And through treatment, I realized that alcohol, pot, any kind of drug. It's a drug is a drug is a drug. And so I had this, well, 2 pounds of pot, and I tried to shove it all in the stew and flush it. I just want to get away. Well, guess what? 2 pounds of pot will not flush in one flush. So I had to sit there, I'd take it out and put it on and then take a little bit at a time. And I just remember it took forever. And I remembered, I didn't know the Lord then, but I remember, you get me through this and I will never smoke pot again. The first 30 days that I had quit drinking, I lost 30 pounds. There was one night, one day, I should say day, because it was like a 24 to 30 hour period where I literally couldn't even get out of bed. My body was going through such a withdrawal of the alcohol and the drugs. And what I remember about it is there was this this line, and it was light on one side and dark on the other. And I remember I was going over into this darkness, and then I'd come back to the light, and then I'd go back to the darkness and back to the light. And I don't know how many times this happened, but this one time I went way into the darkness, so dark that you couldn't see anything. It was just pitch black darkness. And then all of a sudden something happened, and I came and I went and I went clear over into the light. I know that the Lord saved me. I was going to A club. I was married and divorced with a little girl for the second time. A club life was good to me. After all, I had a higher power at that point in my life where I chose to call God. My sister, she would, I'd tell her just how great life was, and she would say, "Oh, Buzz, that is just the greatest thing." And then I'd tell her about this higher power. I choose to call God, and God was doing this for me, and God was doing that for me, and she goes, "Man, Buzz, that's awesome, but what about Jesus?" And I go, "What are you talking about? I am talking to God himself. Why in the world would I want to talk to his son, Jesus?" And she's, "Oh, well, Buzz, okay, love you." This was also through all those years, and I think some of you have heard this testimony about my brother. My brother, through all that drinking and drugging time, I had to go down to my brother's house because anything mechanical, I had to have his help in doing it. And it seemed like I was always I did all my own work, but with his help. So I always had to go see him about something that I had to fix. And every time I would go and see my brother, at some point in time, he always had to bring this subject up about Jesus Christ. And I just remember he would always, at some point in time in our conversation, would have to say, "Buzz, I have brothers in Christ that are closer than you." And every single time that he said that, I would get so furious, so mad at him, that I'd get my pickup truck, I'd spin out, throw gravel and dust on him. He would be there with his arms in the air, on his knees. He would be weeping, praying me up to the Lord. My brother cared way more for me in my life than he did if I'd ever speak to him ever again. Everything I have shared with you so far happened before I was 30 years old. During that time, like I say, my brother was sharing me, my sister was sharing with me. It was in April 1979 when I just turned 30 years old that January. And I was driving by where the Forest Service office is as you're going into Rapid City at the top of the